Nigel Rattler says she was scammed out of hundreds of dollars after using this credit card reader inside a 7-Eleven in McKinney, Texas. She had a suspicion that something wasn't right, went back to the place of her last purchase, and started rolling. Her video posted to TikTok and Twitter, now going viral. You can see the card skimmer placed right on top of the credit card reader and how easily she was able to pop it off. Rattler told us this all started last Wednesday when she went in to buy a bag of chips.
Card skimming. That time you looked in your bank account just to make sure your $5 was still there and it was gone. Or that one time when you was in a long line at self-checkout and you got your card declined.
Sorry, your card was declined.
Causing you to ask the employee to watch your things while you ran back in the store to grab another item just to walk out the entrance. Or maybe it's the time you went to dinner and your card got declined and you gave them an unloaded gift card and ran out on the bill. All these unfortunate incidents happen due to criminals stealing funds unknowingly from your card. Or maybe it was just poor money management. Either way, it could have been stolen and in no way was your fault. Some of you may not know what it is, but we have all used something that looks like it. Any slot that you've stuck your card in could have been a skimmer. Card skimming is when a device that you thought was reading your card for a transaction turned out to be stealing your information to use it for purchases later. Them needing a PIN doesn't interfere, as a small camera is usually installed to collect that information. This has been going on for a while, but now the use of it has increased as information on it became available. In a before time, when the fattest back in your house or your school was your monitors, white blocky computers and dial-up internet was coming to a house near you. Skimmers were an urban legend, like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, or your hose. It was something you heard about but was never verified until a CBS report in 2002. Then there was the case in 2003 where $200,000 was stolen from customers at a deli in one day, with cases like those happening rare for the next couple of years. However, by 2009, these sticky bandits started trying to get their hands on more machines. However, your mom would have had better luck with these contraptions. Slight tugs on the front would send the whole piece flying off. Others were so bad the ATM wouldn't even work properly, with the occasional criminal lucking up and making some money. In 2010, as the pioneers began to advance their tech, they started introducing keypad layovers that would allow them to copy the keystrokes of their victims to access their card. Soon there were websites selling whole camera skits with different colors depending on the machine you were skimming from. At least the victims weren't the only ones getting scammed, with the first kits costing anywhere from $1,500 to $8,000. However, these were the wireless devices that allowed them to collect information from all over the world with a connection. It would include a magnetic strip reader and a tidy radio that sends the data encrypted. However, many weren't this advanced, and the cheap ones could be placed on the machine to collect the data. The only problem was these masters of disguise had to return to the machine later to get the device. In 2011, ATM makers began putting anti-skimming devices on their machines. You might not have noticed. It was the bright green piece of plastic you now had to put your card into. It didn't take long for skimmers to copy it, with only small parts that no one else would notice if they wasn't a part of Ocean's 11. And with 3D printing on the rise, businesses were popping out of nowhere. It was like a Build-A-Bear shop for thieves putting in orders left and right to get a chance at someone's bank account. Within a year, the copies got so good they were almost a splitting image, other than the small cameras that were well hidden. ATMs weren't the only things that were taking your money now either. Point-of-sale devices such as cash registers were now stealing your information as well, that or the cashier. Whether the local drive-thru worker or his friend who borrowed his shirt for the day, these jabronis were now taking your card, swiping the transaction, but also swiping on their own machine and handing it back to you like nothing happened. Then in 2013, the lick was now at the gas pump, as two crooks in Oklahoma were able to take $400,000 from multiple gas stations. A lot of these smaller heists failed to get the attention of the United States until the holiday season of Target in 2013. In November 2013, as millions of people rushed to the stores before Christmas, thieves set out to steal as much information and money as possible, and they already had their target. Huh? See what I did? Their target, and the store's name is... Okay. Due to the high volume of shoppers within 2 weeks, hackers stole the card information of over 40 million shoppers and personal information of over 70 million. Which became the largest data breach in U.S. history at the time. Hackers were able to get into Target's system from a third party they were working with and gained access to the card payment systems, so whenever anyone swiped, their information went straight to them. The hackers started moving data on December 2nd, and 2 weeks was all they needed as Target was notified on December 12th with fraud charges reported and some stolen data recovered by the company. Skimming was becoming more frequent and less complicated, but in 2014, the US brought in chip and PIN cards to replace the old swipe. You see the chip on the front of your card? Yeah, most of you remember that not being there. All you had was that big black strip on the back, and all of us remember swiping constantly until we all stopped and started inserting. Since skimming was done by taking the information off the magnetic strip when the whole card was slid through the machine, the inclusion of the EMV chip helped make transactions more secure. EMV, which stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa, the three companies that created the EMV system, tired of clients' information being stolen, or even worse, having to be held accountable to that stolen money, they created these cards to stop fraud. Back in the early 90s, and the US just decided 2014 was the best time to get it. I guess better later than before millions of Americans lose billions of dollars. The way the old cards worked was when you swiped your card at the machine would take the information from your card such as the card number, CVV number, and name by the magnetic strip to identify the transaction and confirm the user. So if a skimmer was put on that machine, they would have all that, hence your bank account being emptied. However, the EMV chip uses something called tokenization. So when you insert your card for a transaction, your card number is identified by a tokenization sensor. We'll just call it the third party. Once your card is stored by the third party, it gets a random number called a token, and that is what is saved by the store or wherever you're buying something from. And this ain't just a one-time thing. Every time you use the chip on your card, you get a different token, so it can't be copied. That's the reason why the pinwheel pops up as your body becomes filled with anxiety. It's the transaction running its course, not because you're broke. So yes, swiping is faster, but the chip is more secure. Because of this, skimmers can't skim EMV cards, only the magnetic strip on the back. And that's why you're completely safe now that shimming may sound like a dance move you see on a college campus or in your neighborhood, but it's something far worse. As more and more people started to use the chip on the card instead of the magnetic strip on the back, fraud became harder and harder to commit. When France implemented EMV cards in 1992, they saw a decrease in fraud by 50% and card counterfeiting by 78%. Similar to that, the US saw improvement in 2019 compared to 2015. From 2015 to 2019, stores accepting EMV payments went up 815%, and in that same time, loss from fraud decreased 87%. And even though skimming continued to increase, not nearly as much money was being lost. As long as you weren't swiping your card, your information was safe. However, in 2016, a group of computer security researchers warned and demonstrated how thieves could rewrite the magnetic strip code and make the card act as if it wasn't a chip. This being possible because of many payment machines not being upgraded with the paying cards. The other way was since an EMV chip creates a one-time use number to identify the transaction, that it may be possible to use this code again within seconds. It will require the skimmer to take the generated token from the card once the transaction is made and transfer it wirelessly to a smartphone to make the transaction, or a hacked ATM to withdraw the cash quickly before the token expires. Though this scared consumers for a short time, it was believed unlikely by banks and card makers, but it didn't need to become a reality. First discovered in 2017, some black hat Aiden Pierce had found a way to fraud tech that was made to stop fraud. It's a paper-thin device that once it's penetrated the walls of any ATM or point-of-sales machine, the innocence of your card will never be the same. You see, the chip on the EMV card sends a random number as identification, whereas the magnetic strip sends all your info for confirmation. But the shimmer device acts as a cock block to your card when inserted. It tricks the point-of-sale terminal into believing that your card is a non-chip and allowing a swipe-based transaction to go through. And unlike skimming devices where you can check or notice if something is wrong, you will never be able to identify it because it's literally in the machine. The only good news is that since these are so hard to make, there are not as many of these as skimmers. However, that may not be the case in the future. Even with the pandemic trapping everyone at home to their devices, skimmers moved their business online as well, using malicious codes to hack into payment systems and continue stealing information that they thought was rightly theirs. Now that everyone is back in stores and most being unaware of their surroundings, skimming has been allowed to go back to its roots with a 700% rise in 2022 from the previous year. At the end of the year, there were 30 cities that reported skimming incidents in the last 3 months. Though there is good news. The first quarter of 2021 saw 1 billion more contactless transactions than in 2020, and in the next quarter, more than 45% of all global in-person checkouts were contactless. And in 2023 so far, over 86% of card transactions globally were EMV chips. It means that the world can and is moving to more secure paying methods because there's nothing tech-wise that was made in the 60s that should still be used now. So why? Why do we still have magnetic strips on the back of our cards if they are so outdated and cause the loss of billions of dollars a year? I don't know. Seems like it should have been removed a long time ago, but it's alright, we'll get to it. In 2024, regions such as Europe, MasterCard will start issuing chip cards without magnetic strips, and the US will start in 2027, of course. Now, as far as in-person skimming goes, unless someone comes along and cracks the chip tech, that's it for it. However, card fraud in general is still big business, as card skimming is just a small part of card fraud worldwide, which in 2021 was a $32.34 billion business, with most coming from the US. So until that day comes when you don't have to jerk off a payment terminal inside your local gas station, there are ways you can avoid your information being stolen. Cash is still an option for one. I know a lot of us only see it when we're at a strip club, at a drug deal, or taking pictures, but stores still do accept it. You don't have to carry a lot, just enough to get what you need, or you'll be getting skimmed the old-fashioned way. Contactless transactions, as mentioned before, are on the rise and much more secure, allowing you not to even touch the payment terminal. Such payments are by EMV card, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay. Pretty much any business with the word pay at the end of it. Regularly check your card statements and set up alerts for any unusual activity. Also, check the ATM before using it. Look out for out of the ordinary features like small cameras or loose pieces, and always cover up your PIN with the other hand when you're using it. Treat it like the password to your phone. The same way you want to keep those nudes protected, you should want to keep your bank account protected. And when you can, use the ATM inside your bank or one in heavily populated areas or well lit. That doesn't mean they can't be tampered with, it's just more unlikely. When out somewhere you don't trust like gas stations or fast food places, use credit. Debit is not the move. If they get your credit, it's just credit. But if they get your debit card, that's your bank account. For the gas pump, I just go inside. Gas pumps are like the menaces of payment systems. And please avoid swiping. You literally have no reason to swipe your card anymore. You got cash, Apple, Google, Samsung, PayPal, EMV, Bitcoin, and much more. Use it. And finally, if in doubt, don't be afraid to assault whatever payment terminal you're about to insert your card into real quick. Worst case scenario, they tell you to get out, but in the end, your information is still safe.